Why hello there friends, thanks for clicking on this video and joining in on what is a continuing conversation, but this time it's going to be leaning towards percussion caps. Okay, it is cool out here, it's early in the morning, it's a bit breezy yet. Tea is good and hot. This is one of these good earth teas, and I really like this quote from Bob Dylan. All I can do is be me, whoever that is. So I can only be me, and I just want to thank everybody for viewing my videos and giving the thumbs up and also subscribing and also for leaving your comments. And in particular, the overall theme of this video is going to be percussion caps, and something that I've had to do to change just simply because the manufacturers of these caps, these bang caps, have changed the way they've done their bang caps over the past couple of years. And I kind of want to talk about that and then show you what I've gone to. In my opinion, I found a better way of doing it. But before I get into that, I just want to address just some, lightheartedly, some comments. Okay. Now, the previous video I did talked about different sources of carbon, such as toilet paper, myself, peanut shells, and I really appreciated the one fellow that left the comment that carbon is carbon, and I totally agree, but not all carbons are equal. That's why I've been showing throughout the course of my videos specific gravities. And I was very, very surprised what the specific gravity of peanut shell was. It's close to red cedar. But there was also another comment in there about how when gunpowder is hard to get, toilet paper is a good carbon source, and that's what's being shown. But my thought-provoking question to that statement is this. You've heard the saying, need to make hay while you can make hay? Well, my response to that is, since gunpowder is relatively easy to get now, whether that be your synthetics such as Pyrex, I don't know about Black MZ, but 777. I can go to Cabela's, and those gunpowders are starting to come back onto the shelves. Caps are not yet, but those gunpowders are. So, and I get it, like a lot of you, I'm not spending $25, $35 for a pound of powder. That's why I elect to make my own gunpowder. Now, with that being stated, why wait until there's a shortage of the chemicals that are related to making black powder at that time? Why not start stocking up now? And I still have 3 pounds in another place. I've got all the sulfur I need. But the important thing is the charcoal. So why wait until there's a shortage of gunpowder to try to locate a source of carbon? This container is full of red cedar, charcoal. I'm not waiting until there's a shortage to fill the demand. Here's my basswood container, the specific gravity of about 42. You can see how much is in there. I'm not waiting until there's a shortage. Here's another jar with red cedar. I'm going to use this red cedar up before I get into the bigger container. I'm not waiting until there's a shortage. Here's my mixed junipers. Jar is about 3/4 full. I'm not waiting until there's a shortage. You get my point? Make hay while you can make hay. Okay? And I'm going to be doing something else with the KNO3 here soon. Got to get to the hardware store first. But the same thing applies to making percussion caps. And I really have been enjoying what Terry from the YouTube channel Times Gone Tech has been doing with his percussion caps and trying to not only come up with a much better way of doing percussion caps, but also trying to make them waterproof. Now, if you haven't been introduced to his channel yet, all you gotta do is put in Times Gone Tech, and all the videos that he has done will pop up. In fact, I even left him a comment saying that I was going to be doing this just simply because the way I have to do percussion caps now has changed, and I have determined, for me, this is a much better way to go. So let me just kind of give you the full overall view if you haven't watched any of those videos in the past. Okay? When I started using these, they worked sufficiently enough. But the more I used these, the more you had to pay attention to when you cut out. Now this compound is glued to a little piece of paper. Okay, so you cut these out, you remove that little piece of paper, but I found myself having to pay attention to the amount of compound that was on these because they were not, the compound was not consistently placed. So some of the weaker ones that I had, that I demonstrated, were not paying attention to the amount of compound, and then I started paying more attention to the compound and I was getting more consistent ignitions. And sometimes the powder charge would go off, other times it would not. A lot of that I didn't record because I was just, playing around with it by myself. So then I started packing them with a little bit of black powder, and that resolved 99% of the issue. The other issue is you put them in a tin and you shake the tin and everything starts falling out, much like it does with your Primo, which I still got. I still got plenty of Primo, but I don't like this stuff. I really don't like this because I have found, and probably Terry will concur, that it's not as consistent as we're all led to believe. And one of the things is putting it in a percussion cap, moving around in your tin when the acetone dries out, which is supposed to activate some sort of glue that's involved with it. It doesn't work. That's why when I went to the store, I found a different type of bang cap. Even though it's the same company, what I discovered is that there's little pieces of white paper keeping the component inside. So what I started doing then, when I cut these apart, I was saving the white paper and putting those inside my percussion cap to keep the component together. Well, what I discovered through that is that this paper is too thick, and it wasn't consistently burning through the paper to get to the main powder charge. So that didn't work. But what I discovered also is that, and I've got a mix, so I'm going through them very carefully. There's two different type of components that they use on these to go bang, for these little toy bang guns, okay? Some of it's white, and some of it's kind of like tannish in cover. The white stuff is garbage, okay? I can take and scrape out three of these, put them in a percussion cap, tamp them down, and they're just not strong enough to ignite the powder charge. Now some of these have got the tan component, and I've been using that, okay? And I have found that depending on how much they put in there, what I do is I break it up on my board ever gingerly, because I don't want to set it off, and then I sweep it into the cap, and I fill the cap, then I tamp it down. That works very, very well. Now, I do not use that white piece of paper to keep the component in place. What I have done is I've got some pattern material. It's a real thin paper, and I took a punch and I punched those out, and I have discovered that that is sheer enough to not only keep the component in place, but also for the charge to burn through. And I have had little to no issues with that at all. And just so that you'll know, make hay while you can. I've got more than enough caps, blanks, to last me the rest of my days. Okay? And here's my little circles that I punched out with that tissue paper, and I've also made some paper cartridges with this. I want to try those out over the course of the summer too. Now, because of the entire process and because sometimes components are tough to get, years ago I watched some YouTube videos of fellows making or charging percussion caps with strike anywhere matches. Now at that time, when I was watching those, for whatever reason you could not find these strike anywhere matches. So what I took was, got a hold of one of those little, match books, scraped off the component, scraped off some of the, well, I forget what they call this stuff right here, phosphorus, mixed it together, and it worked. But at that time I wasn't putting enough into the percussion cap, so I kind of shit canned that and went to using the bang caps. Okay, but since then these strike anywhere matches have started reappearing, and I first saw these about a year ago or so in my local hardware store. Now I didn't buy these with the sole intent of making percussion caps. I bought them because when I go to rendezvous, sometimes it's a lot handier just to strike a match than to try to start a fire with flint and steel. So, while you can get them, get them. Make hay while you can make hay. Let me pause and put some of this stuff away and continue. So again, why wait until there's a shortage to leave yourself without? I don't do that. Alright, so how do these work? Well, obviously, everybody knows you can strike them all alongside the box and they'll work for starting. But how do they work in a percussion cap, and how many do you need? Well, you experiment with that on yourself, okay, by yourself. But let me get the camera positioned and I'll show you how I break these up before I put them into a percussion cap. So obviously, it goes without saying, be very careful how you do this. You put too much pressure and it'll go up. If you end up having a bunch of this component, and I'm using a paper plate here to do this, it goes without saying, you go to, and I'll show you how I do it, but twice now I've had a little bit of it go up because I applied too much pressure. So I made myself a little rolling pin type thing. Okay, I put one match head out here, and then I just start putting a little bit of downward pressure, and you can see that it's coming off. Okay, and I'll do 5 or 6 of these. There again, I don't want to do too much because if I have an oh oops, I lose everything. Okay, now in case anybody's thinking already, no, you do not need to scrape the phosphorus and mix it in, because they're strike anywhere matches, so you don't need it. Now if you elect to put it in, that's your choice. Okay, but so I just kind of take this little stick and kind of break off the components. Now you might on occasion leave in a little pieces of wood. That's why I have a set of tweezers, so that when I see it, I can pick it out. Like I see a little piece right here. Okay? So you will get little pieces of wood. Don't worry about it. Okay. Now that I've got those cleaned off, I'll very gingerly go to crushing it up. And basically all I do is just kind of rock it back and forth. Don't drag it, because it's that dragging motion that'll set it off. Okay? And just work at getting it down to a fine powder. Might take a little bit, so just keep working at it until it gets down to that fine powder. Oops, might take a little bit, but you'll eventually get there. In fact, you could probably show you in this jar here how much I've got saved already from doing this. And I got it down to a fine enough powder to charge percussion caps with. And again, if you're not comfortable doing this, then by all means, don't do it. So I've got it down fine enough for this demonstration, okay? Now that is that's 6 matches, okay? Now if some of you think this is a waste of time, fine. Let it be your waste of time. For me, it's a love. And it's also the love of sharing knowledge. Okay. So, what I'm going to do... Whoops, I put away my caps. Stay tuned. So I'm going to place 2 percussion caps in my board. And I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to sweep the component over to the cap. But I'm going to fill the cap up. Okay. I'm going to fill it up. That way there, I know that I'm going to have enough compound in here to go bang. Okay. I know the camera is probably not going to pick it up, but these caps are full. And I've showed my little tool in the past, a little piece of brass rod. That's the same size, the inside diameter of a percussion cap. I'm going to very gingerly pack that down. Okay, and I'm not gonna, don't try to scrape it. If you're gonna put any downward pressure, just take it and rock it. Okay, then I'm gonna take 2 pieces of that paper, that tissue paper from the patterns, just one little piece, and then I'm gonna poke those in and set it on top. Now, as I do this, I'm going to tell you what I've done off camera. I've already made up 12 of these, identical to this, but I sprayed them with Camp Dry, the silicone that Terry was using to try to make his caps waterproof. Now, I'm trying it just simply from the perspective that the Camp Dry, the silicone, is sitting on top of the piece of paper instead of on top of the compound. I don't know that'll make a difference. Don't know. Don't really care. But it is just a neat experiment to try. So, I've got those 2 done. And I put them through. And like I've showed before, I take them and I just bounce them a little bit to get some of the excess off. Now, where the excess is actually coming from, if you look at your percussion caps, it's got a series of folds, and that's how your die actually makes these. It actually folds the edges over, and some of that loose compound is what gets trapped on the inside of your caps as it relates to those folds. So I just take and bounce them a little bit just to get that excess off. Okay? Alright, Got my 61 Navy. I'm going to cap them, reposition the camera, and then I'll let you listen to the sound, and you decide for yourself if these are hot enough to use for percussion caps. So some of you may be wondering, since I fill the cap up and then compact it and then put it on the cone, if there's still enough room for the cylinder to turn. And the answer is yes. Okay. Now, before you guys all do this, experiment with yourself, because you'll have to determine how much pressure is going to be required to compact these. And that just comes with experience. But let you guys judge for yourselves. I don't think I have to tell anybody what they're listening to. You can see that not only are they loud enough, but you can probably assume for yourself that there's enough fire getting through the cone to ignite that powder charge, and I did it even without the phosphorus. Now if you choose to scrape the phosphorus off, by all means go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. It's going to just do nothing but help it. So, a few months ago, I made up a few of these. Some of them I put in the tin like this, and the rest of them I just left loose in the bottom of this container, closed up on the shelf. So let's see if leaving them like this has any effect on how they actually work. And I don't know really what to expect, because that'll determine whether you make up a bunch of them and let them set loose. At least I don't know what the ones in the tin can is doing, but I have everything labeled. So let's just see what's going to happen. I might be disappointed, I don't know. But fresh, you can see they work pretty well. Nothing. Nothing. Yeah, a little bit. That was good enough. That was definitely good enough. Alright, I think this was one that misfired. So, 2 out of 6. Are they 100% reliable? Apparently not. But, if you're just going to go out shooting for a day, make up a couple dozen of them. Shoot them. I got 2 more left right here. Let's see. Let's see what these doing. Now, bear in mind, having coated those ones previously with silicone, that might help any ambient moisture from getting into these. We'll find out. I'm going to let those sit outside in the sun for a day. Maybe I've made up 12 of them. Maybe what I'll do is I'll shoot 6. And if they work fine, then I'll put the other 6 and leave them loose in here for a while and see what happens. But here's the last 2. Not as loud, but it's loud enough in my opinion, or hot enough in my opinion, to let the ignite the powder charge. In fact, you can see the spent cap right there. Let me get this in a pair of tweezers. Maybe you can see it a little bit better. You can see it flatten that right out, and not only that, it put a hole in it. So I'd say that's pretty damn hot. The other cap that was a little light, I could just about reuse that. Not that I'm going to, but it is another source of ignition for your cap and ball revolvers, and in particular if you don't like the primol, which I do not do. Now I have some other ones here that I've made hotter using the match heads in conjunction with the normal bang caps, and throughout the course of the summer I will be trying those to see if I've effectively made them hotter or hot enough to maybe even use both the bang cap and the match head as the source of ignition. But before I go, I recorded something a couple days ago or a day ago or so about that piece of metal that I had done the test burn with the peanut shells as the charcoal. And I left that out overnight when we had a lot of moisture in the air. So I'll show you these results and bid everybody adieu. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye. Alright, I wanted to show you guys this. It's been one day since I did that test burn with the gunpowder using peanut shells as the charcoal. What I showed that same day is the amount of moisture, humidity if you will, coming into the air. This piece of metal was left in my shop in the open air, and look at the rust that's already starting on this piece of metal. I hope the camera can pick it up and you can get a really good view of it. Turn it the other way, face it in the sun. So again, no matter how clean burning you think your gunpowder is, you're still going to have to deal with rusting if you don't clean them as soon as possible. And that would also include even your Pyrodex 777 or your Black MZ. You may think you're burning really clean gunpowder, but ultimately, in one day, this is what can happen when you are in a moisture-enriched atmosphere.